Cop illegally arrested their own state representative mistakenly. Have you ever witnessed a situation so unjust that it leaves you speechless? Imagine seeing someone in a position of power, someone elected to serve and protect the public, being humiliated and dragged through the streets by the very people meant to uphold the law. How could such a thing happen in a place that claims to be fair and just? It was a chilly evening in a small town, the kind of town where everyone knew everyone, and the police were well aware of who held public office. But tonight, a chain of events would unfold that would shake the community to its core. The victim? None other than State Representative Charles Anthony, a beloved community leader, known for his integrity and dedication to justice. As Representative Anthony strolled down the main street, taking a break from his busy schedule, he never imagined he'd soon be face to face with officers intent on enforcing the law, selectively. Why did they stop him? What could he possibly have done wrong? He'd done nothing out of the ordinary, yet here he was, caught in the crosshairs of a grave injustice. Could you ever imagine an elected official, a symbol of the people's trust, being treated like a common criminal? Two officers approached him. Their voices cold and their expressions unyielding, they informed him that he was under suspicion. Confused, Charles raised an eyebrow. "Suspicion of what?" he asked, trying to maintain his calm. But the officers weren't listening. They were too busy sizing him up, assessing him not by his role but by something he couldn't change, his skin color. How many times have people faced undue judgment simply because of how they look? How many times has an innocent person had to answer for accusations that had nothing to do with their actions? The officers, smug and self-assured, told him he fit the description of a suspect involved in recent burglaries. Charles's heart sank as he realized what was happening. Fit the description? He'd heard that line countless times before, stories from constituents, friends, even his own family members. But to experience it firsthand as an elected official was something else entirely. "Officer, do you even know who I am?" he asked, his voice steady, though his patience was wearing thin. But the question only seemed to provoke them further. "Yeah, we know exactly who you are," one officer sneered, barely glancing at his ID as if it held no importance. "A suspect." How many elected leaders have been humiliated simply because of a misunderstanding? Or was this a misunderstanding at all? Was it deliberate? At that moment, Charles faced a decision: comply or resist. He knew that resistance could escalate things quickly, yet compliance seemed like an admission of guilt. He raised his hands slowly, hoping to avoid any sudden movements that might give them an excuse to use force. "Look, I'm not resisting. I just want to understand why I'm being detained." But his calm demeanor only seemed to irritate them more. "We don't have to explain ourselves to you," the other officer spat, grabbing Charles by the arm with unnecessary force. What must it feel like to be treated with such blatant disrespect despite having done nothing wrong? A small crowd started gathering, their faces a mix of shock and disbelief. The onlookers murmured, recognizing Representative Anthony. "Isn't that the state representative?" one woman whispered. "What are they doing? This is ridiculous." The officers heard the whispers but ignored them, pushing Charles towards the patrol car with an iron grip. Charles's mind raced. What would this do to his reputation? His credibility? Would people believe he was innocent, or would they assume he was guilty simply because of how he looked? Once they reached the station, Charles felt the weight of humiliation settling over him. He was fingerprinted, searched, and placed in a cell. Could you imagine the sheer humiliation of an innocent man, an elected official, being treated this way? As he sat on the cold metal bench, he reflected on all the people he'd promised to protect and serve, and how powerless he now felt. Do you think he'd be able to clear his name? Would justice truly prevail? Or would this ordeal haunt him forever? Hours passed before anyone bothered to inform the police chief, who finally realized the magnitude of their mistake. The chief's face turned pale as he read through the paperwork. You arrested a state representative?" he stammered, looking at the two officers who suddenly didn't seem so confident anymore. They looked down, shifting uncomfortably. "Sir, we thought he was the suspect. He matched the description," one of them mumbled, a flimsy excuse for what was undeniably racial profiling. Have you ever seen someone try to justify the unjustifiable? Can a simple mistake truly account for the damage done? The chief wasted no time. He ordered the immediate release of Charles and rushed to the holding area to apologize personally. But by then, the damage had been done. Charles emerged from his cell with a solemn expression, his respect for the law tarnished by the very people who were supposed to enforce it. Standing in the lobby, he faced the officers who had put him through this ordeal. "Do you know how many people I represent who have gone through exactly what you put me through?" he asked, his voice filled with disappointment. "People who don't have the privilege of a title to fall back on." The officers stammered, searching for words, but there was nothing they could say. The crowd that had gathered in the station lobby began to murmur again, some even filming the exchange. Could a simple apology ever suffice for the pain inflicted? The chief tried to salvage the situation, offering a public apology and even a statement to the media. But Charles knew this was bigger than him. He saw the opportunity to make this moment a turning point for his community. He stepped up to the cameras, his face a blend of calm and conviction. "This isn't just about me," he said to the crowd, his voice resonating with a powerful truth. "This is about every person who's been judged unfairly, who's been labeled, detained, and humiliated because they supposedly fit a description. This isn't just a mistake, it's a systemic issue that needs to be addressed." Do you think his words would make a difference? Could this be the start of something greater? The media coverage was relentless. News outlets broadcasted the story statewide, and soon the incident went viral. People across the nation weighed in, shocked that an elected official could be subjected to such treatment. But for Charles, the real victory would come if this incident led to real change. In the following weeks, Charles proposed new legislation that would require better accountability for police officers and clearer protocols to prevent racial profiling. The bill gained traction, fueled by public outrage and the demand for justice. Could this one incident ignite the change that so many had been fighting for? As the weeks passed, the two officers involved faced disciplinary action and were forced to undergo mandatory training. But Charles knew that wasn't enough. He continued to push for reform, driven by the hope that his ordeal could help prevent others from enduring the same. And so, what began as a humiliating experience transformed into a powerful movement for change. Charles never forgot the sting of that night, but he used it as fuel, a reminder of why he'd entered public service in the first place. In the end, can justice prevail even when it's delayed, or does it leave a permanent scar on those who experience injustice? Charles Anthony's story became a beacon of hope, a reminder that even in the darkest moments, there's a chance to shine a light on what's right. His fight was far from over, but with each passing day, he knew he was one step closer to a fairer world.